Welcome back to All Philly All the Time. This is our Sixers season preview episode. And of course, our Sixers expert, Parker Wolf, has to be here for this.
They had to bring me in today. I not only do I love the 76ers, I also love the sport of basketball as a whole. So not only I'm so excited. We're just going to get right into it because I can't wait any longer. The season has, obviously there was a disappointing year last year. They ended their run very early in the playoffs.
Those two sentences are the exact way we've started every season for the past, I don't know, 6 years.
Right. We've been waiting longer in between, in the off season every single year. And so without further ado, I think we should just start talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll jump right in. Last year, we both agreed, we were talking on the phone because I was still in Florida. We were like, this year for the Sixers, with Harden gone, we have no expectations. Just like, see what happens. Whatever happens, we roll with it. This year, very, very different. Much higher expectations. This team feels like they've been waiting a couple years to be able to build this exact team. So let's talk about it. The roster for the 2024-25 season, what stands out to you?
Yeah, whenever you grab a superstar in the offseason like Paul George, you're going to have higher expectations. That just is how it goes. And so there's a lot of things regarding the roster that are very interesting to talk about. So obviously Paul George is number one, okay? Let's just talk about the job that Daryl Morey's done here. He brings in Paul George, signs him to a 4-year deal. The Clippers were not willing to offer him that 4th year. They just wanted to pay him for 3 years. And so the Sixers were willing to do that, even knowing that this 4th year might be a little bit wasted, right? I think there's only a 2 or 3 year window right here with the Sixers. But by year 4, Paul George is already in his mid-30s, and there's not going to be much left. So Sixers bring in Paul George, and it gives them an automatic leg up on the competition. They jump into the Celtics realm of playoff contenders. They have 3 superstar caliber players, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and now obviously Paul George. So just the availability of Paul George gives them a higher ceiling, right? It gives them the potential to win the championship, possibly, right? Obviously the Celtics are still in the Eastern Conference. They still exist.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, so it at least gives them a chance to compete with the Celtics, which they didn't have prior. And it's not just Paul George, right? Because if it was just Paul George, I don't think they would have any chance to get over the hump of the Celtics. That's not enough, right? You lost to the Knicks. You didn't even get to the Celtics. They haven't gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals in post-process era. They have lost every single year prior to the Eastern Conference Finals. And so in order to get over the hump, they first have to get to that conference championship game so that they can go against the Celtics.
That's the first hump.
That's the first hump. And that would be a development and an improvement from previous years. Beating the Celtics would be the second hurdle, which is like an even bigger hurdle to get over. So
yeah.
That being said, it wasn't just Paul George. They also brought in Andre Drummond, which the Sixers now have a backup center, like a true backup center.
Which they haven't had since Andre Drummond.
Right. And now you bring back Andre Drummond to the lineup. B-ball Paul Reed really wasn't doing a whole lot. The off-on numbers of Embiid last year were so dramatic. It was so crazy how good they were with him. And when he was injured, especially down the stretch of the regular season, they were nowhere near as competitive. They were losing majority of their games.
I believe they were 16-27 without Embiid last year.
Yeah, 16 and 20.
Very bad.
Very bad. That's not even a playoff caliber team. So it gives the Sixers a little bit more depth. And Embiid, who knows if he can stay healthy. He hasn't proven that he can stay healthy. Hopefully, they're saying this year, the rhetoric that we're hearing from the Sixers is it's just about championships now. We've built the roster the way that we want it. Daryl Morey has, done his job. And so now it's just a matter about keeping Embiid healthy, keeping Paul George healthy. And you're seeing that as both of those guys are not going to be starting game 1 of the regular season. But my question is, why was it never all about championships? Like, you're just saying this now. Is it because the roster is as deep as it ever will be? Because this is the best chance, I think, for a championship, just because of the depth in throughout the entire lineup. But this is the NBA we're talking about, and you don't remember teams 5 years, 10 years down the road if they haven't won a championship. So why were they not thinking about championships before this? It's a little bit concerning to me, but hopefully Embiid can stay healthy.
I would say they're just thinking about it. I think it seems like to me they're just thinking about it differently now. Like obviously they've always wanted to win a championship. Just now this year they're like, we're going to try to do that in a different way with a different mentality. And again, this roster is one of the best shots they've had at winning a championship. So higher expectations and all of that. But yeah, learning from the past seasons, they're like, we don't really care as much what happens in the regular season. We just care about the championship. Whereas before it was like, well, we still want to have a good regular season, get a high seed, and that hasn't panned out. Like they've been a top 3 seed consistently, hasn't mattered. So I think they just kind of care a little bit less now. Similar to what we talked about with the Phillies when they got knocked out. It's like they had a great regular season this year. No one cares because they lost immediately. So it didn't even matter. I've heard multiple people say that this is the best team for Joel Embiid that he's ever had. Like the fit around him is the best he's had. Do you agree with that?
I do. And that's mainly because of a couple new additions. You have Eric Gordon, who's just a 3-point sniper. He's a corner specialist. Been in the league, 16 years now?
Long time.
Do you know how many it is?
I do not.
He's the most veteran of all veterans, right?
Well, LeBron.
Well, I mean, yeah, but Eric Gordon is like right up there with LeBron. Because when you think of LeBron, you don't think of him as like, oh yeah, that guy's a veteran. You think of him as, I think of him as like a superstar.
He's too good to be there. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, Eric Gordon.
Veteran is like a guy who's not as good. That's
that's what I think of. And when I think of Eric Gordon, that's what I think of. So he's a great roster piece. And then you have two guys, Reggie Jackson and Caleb Martin, that you bring on. They're both veterans, and they've both performed well in high quality minutes, right? So they've helped their team make really good runs. Caleb Martin with the Heat, and then Reggie Jackson with the championship winning Denver Nuggets a couple years ago. So you bring in two other veterans right there that have proven that they've been able to perform in high quality minutes. Are they going to be able to be consistent throughout the regular season? They're older, so they're helpful. It's just they're totally thinking in a playoff mentality. Like these guys can provide us 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even like pushing 20 minutes in a postseason series because they didn't have the depth to hang with the Knicks last year. And so they're trying to bring in these pieces that have experienced this and performed well before. I do think it is the best fit around Embiid because then you have Tyrese Maxey as well. And Tyrese Maxey is the perfect complement to Embiid. Just because of the way that he plays, he is a small point guard who can use the pick and roll with Embiid. He's not ball dominant like James Harden. And so I think he has all the qualities that you want physically and mentally with his personality. He's not a demanding guy who's going to butt heads with Embiid. You know, they're going to be able to do their own thing and coexist together. Paul George is also a player where he doesn't have as big of a mentality compared to some of the other superstars in the league. So I do think that it's still Embiid's team, and I think everybody knows that. They're going to coexist around that and be able to work with each other.
There shouldn't be too much of a power struggle. Like
Paul George isn't going to be coming in. Right. Paul George isn't going to be like James Harden, being ball dominant like James Harden.
Yeah.
They're going to have Tyrese Maxey obviously man the point, and he'll have the ball a decent amount, but he's not going to be stealing touches from Embiid. Embiid averaged 34 points per game last year when he was playing. So Tyrese Maxey knows that this is Embiid's team. But I think this is year 3 now for Tyrese Maxey. So it's year 3.
4? 3?
I thought it was 3.
I think the COVID year I don't know.
Oh, does that count for him?
I'm not sure. We don't have to he's 23. I know that. But he hasn't been, maybe year 3 as a starter,
Yeah.
possibly. Because he was like coming off the bench his
Oh,
first year.
right. Well, his first year,
So
yeah, 2020.
Okay.
I mean, he played a little bit.
Yeah. So as a starter, he's coming into his third year. You already touched on this. We started talking about it with Maxey and Paul George. That's the thing that's going to get the most attention from the national media with the Sixers is this big three of guys. So you talked about like the personality wise, how they should mesh pretty well on the court from a basketball sense. It also seems like Paul George being the forward who can handle the ball but can also catch and shoot at a crazy high rate. It seems like that's also a perfect fit right between Maxey and Embiid.
Yes, I agree because he's able to work off the ball. He's also very efficient in the mid range. So his pull up game is one of the best. It's right around DeMar DeRozan in terms of how good he is, right? So he's very smooth off the pull up. And that's going to help the whole team because they didn't have that dynamic in their game last year. I can't tell you the amount of games that I watched the 76ers and they were just bricking mid-range pull-ups.
That's bias.
Yeah. So you're basically upgrading, if you think about it that way, you're upgrading Tobias Harris into Paul George. And so obviously they need someone to fill that power forward spot. But in terms of the big three, you've got a small forward, center, and point guard that I think can coexist pretty well. Nick Nurse's system is also, it includes a lot more ball movement. And I think that's going to be great in terms of scheming up off ball actions for Embiid. I think you're going to be able to see him in the post getting deep a little bit more consistently like last year, as opposed to just standing up at the top of the key, having the whole game revolve around him. So I do think Paul George also has some explosiveness left where he's able to get to the rack and actually be a slasher. You know, he's not going to just be the most efficient in terms of like when he has the ball in his hands, just creating for himself. He's still a creator. It's just that's not his strong suit, I would say. I think James Harden was better at that, but I don't think you have to be better at that to get everybody involved. And so I'm looking forward to that a lot, just to see the way that they play off of each other.
Yeah, the two things I love about Paul George the most are how high of a rate he shoots on catch and shoot threes. That's fantastic because any team with Embiid, you're going to get a lot of those catch and shoot opportunities from three. So that's awesome. And like you were saying with the mid-range game, the shot creation, it feels like, again, like you were saying with building a team for the playoffs, late in playoff games, Embiid is always going to get double teamed, and it seems like he's just always really struggled at the end of those tense games to get good looks. Like he'll get off a shot, but like good shot attempts, quality shot attempts. And Maxey has helped with that, especially against the Knicks, where he was incredible. Couldn't have asked for anything more from Tyrese Maxey in that series. Probably couldn't have asked for anything from Joel Embiid either. Like they both, yeah. That shows you how much more depth they needed, that those two guys did what they did and the Sixers only won 2 games. But yeah, I love that having Paul George gives them that ability where it's like Joel's getting double teamed. Tyrese can get his own shots when he needs to, but you have that seasoned vet. It's like, we need a shot here, Paul. We're going to drop this play. We're going to get you open, hit this jumper here. Or a play breaks down and Embiid's also a little bit, he's a big man. You can't expect him to be mobile. He's not quite as mobile when a play breaks down. But if something goes wrong, I trust Paul George having the ball where he's just like, okay, I got to make something happen here to make a shot.
Right.
So I think that's going to be super helpful late in games. Hopefully he makes some clutch playoff shots for them late in games.
Having another person to create when the shot clock is winding down, when you're grinding it out in NBA series where it's a 7-game series and the other team knows you very well, having the ability to have someone that can create their own shot is huge, especially at an NBA level, right? Like these guys, they're all creators. They're all really good NBA players. But then when you can like create your own shot against other NBA players, having 3 guys as opposed to 2 guys that can do that, like that is huge, especially when you verse teams that have great defensive depth like the Celtics. Like having 3 guys that can create your own shot is so different than just two guys because you can get double teamed, you can get schemed out of the game. They were throwing everything, the Knicks were, at Embiid. Like he had some amazing games. He also had a little bit of injuries as well. But the Knicks were really getting to Embiid. He was tired throughout that series. They were offensive rebounding on him like crazy. And so I do worry about that with Embiid. Like, is he just getting slow to the ball? Like, not showing as much heart on the offensive and defensive end when he doesn't want to. Like, you can tell, at least in the Knicks series, he was taking breaks on certain offensive possessions where if he didn't want to shoot it, he wasn't going to shoot it. And so you can't really do that, especially this late in your career, especially in the playoffs. And you saw that with Embiid a little bit. So it is definitely a little bit worrying me for me there. But I think as a whole, the roster is as deep as it ever has been. And the big three is a big part of that.
Yeah, like you're talking about with Embiid, his stamina this year, he announced that he will not be playing in back-to-backs. Not that he'll miss both games, but he will not play in back-to-back games at all this season, likely the rest of his career. So people obviously had some reactions to that, making fun of Embiid for not wanting to play. But those are the same people who would make fun of Joel Embiid if he wasn't healthy for the playoffs or didn't perform in the playoffs. So I think there's a big double standard there. I'm okay with this. I think it makes sense because Embiid has shown he just can't stay healthy throughout a whole season, which sucks. But you just it seems like they've accepted that fact. And they're like, yeah, we would love to play him during the regular season. You'd love to have Joel Embiid for as many games as possible to have a better record, but you're in a tough spot where it seems like this is just kind of what they have to do if they want him healthy in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a tricky argument because load management has obviously been a pretentious topic in the NBA. It started with the Clippers a lot, and it's kind of migrated over throughout the whole league. I think Embiid sitting out back-to-backs, it doesn't concern me at all. I mean, it does make sense. This guy can't stay healthy to save his life. And so as long as you can have him ready for the postseason, my main concern is like, does it matter? Like, is he going to be perpetually injured? Because that's what it feels like. And it's the biggest question mark, I think, with the 76ers this year.
Oh, of course.
Even when you get to the postseason, you're always going to be thinking about it. Like, could Embiid go down this game? Yeah. Like, is he going to get hurt? He could this game. Like,
at any moment.
At any moment, right? So you go into like game 5, game 6, it's like, well, like he could literally just go down and it doesn't matter if we win this series, we're just going to lose the next one. Like, that could definitely happen. And so my concern isn't more so with him sitting out back-to-backs. It's more so just, can he even stay healthy? If you can't play like 50% of regular season games, like, are you going to be physically prepared and ready for the postseason? Maybe, but the postseason is a lot harder. Like, defense gets tougher. There's more running involved. You're getting more winded. Like, the expectation is higher. So mentally it's tougher. Everything is harder. And if you can't even play in the regular season, can you be ready for the postseason? And you have the best trainers in the world. Like, back-to-backs is basically you just play one night and then you play the next night, right? And it is a little bit of a grind, especially if you do that throughout the entire season. Basketball is a very demanding sport. But, like, how is that any different, really? Like, you have the best trainers in the world, like, giving you an extra day of rest. It does make a difference, but, like,
you still get to have a night's sleep. Like,
right.
There's a reset.
You can still
it's
rest
not a double header.
The entire morning. Yeah, that's right. So for me, it's more of a concern of like, yeah, this guy isn't healthy. Like, but I feel like, is he ever going to be healthy? So I guess I'm not concerned about the back-to-back aspect. I'm concerned about Embiid's health. And it's just very frustrating because every year he seems to be injured.
Yeah. He did also say, he said he's lost roughly 15 to 20 pounds. So that's good. He said he wants to lose more, which I'm like, oh, that seems like a lot, but I don't know. I'm not his trainers. But yeah, he's lost weight in an attempt to be better conditioned and have more endurance, stamina. So that he's making the effort to be able to do that. And that we can never fault Embiid for not. Sometimes he does seem, yeah, like he's gassed, but there have been so many other times where he's clearly injured and just gutting it out. Like there have been so many performances like that from Embiid, so we have no right to be too harsh on him for not trying to be there for his team. That's not a concern at all. He's played through so many injuries, so it'd be great if he's healthy, but I think we just have to assume that he's not, and that's really going to be. We'll talk about this with the team's overall season expectations, but it feels like there's huge variance because of those injuries with him and Paul George also being known for being injury prone. Like, if they're healthy, it's awesome. If they're both hurt, it's terrible. So that's absolutely a very big concern. The part of the roster construction again, they brought in a ton of new people, and even the people that they brought in last year, like guys who were on the team last year, are considered like people that we've had for a while just because there's been so much turnover. Like Kelly Oubre feels like one of the most known players on this team, and he just joined last year, but there's so much turnover that this is such a brand new team. Who stands out to you the most as the most key pieces?
Yeah, there's great question. There's a bunch of new pieces. The first one I want to talk about is Jared McCain, the rookie. So this is not someone they traded for, but someone they obviously just picked up this year. He performed very well in preseason. He had a 17-point performance, another 11-point performance, I believe. And he was very efficient on his shot attempts.
Yep.
He was creating for himself also, which is huge, especially as an undersized guard.
Very impressive.
Very impressive, especially against NBA competition. And you saw sparks of this at Duke, especially towards the back half of the year. You could see, like, man, this guy can get buckets. He's creating for himself at an ACC level where, he's starting to come. He's better than Kyle Filipowski. He's Duke's best player towards the stretch, right? And so the Sixers drafted him. I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but he's shown flashes in the preseason. And if he can just create his own shot, that is amazing. And he's not going to be guarded by the best player. He's going to be guarded by,
possibly the worst defender.
Possibly the worst defender, like, because he's the smallest. So they're going to put like Bones Highland and, just the
shout out Bones Highland.
Well, I'm not trying to, that's not a dig on Bones Highland.
Just
but
an example.
Those types of guys on him, right? So Tyrese Maxey's going to get the 1A option. And everybody else, just the worst little defender is going to go to Jared McCain. So I think he's a crucial piece. If he can provide minutes to the Sixers down the stretch, he keeps progressing throughout the season and is actually a valuable piece. He's a backup to Tyrese Maxey and a complement to Tyrese Maxey that they didn't have last year. And he can provide Tyrese with a little bit of a safety valve, if that makes sense, especially if he can shoot the ball at a high clip.
Yep.
He's almost like a more athletic, possibly Eric Gordon, right? Eric Gordon, just a very solid player. Jared McCain can be like Eric Gordon if he can shoot the three, but he's quicker and can create for himself. So that is a great combination. Hopefully that's what can happen. In terms of the consistency level with the 76ers, the guys that they have returning is next to no one. It's about 40% of the minutes that they had being played for them last year. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Kyle Lowry, Kelly Oubre. Like, that's just about it.
Ricky Council, who played 3 minutes a game.
Yeah. Ricky Council, who's he's a sneaky developmental player. I don't know how much he'll see the floor, but he obviously drafted from Arkansas. He's definitely athletic and could start to blossom into like a Moses Moody type.
He's fun to watch.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's a high flyer. And so I don't know. You've seen on Golden State, they always have those young developmental players.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. James Wiseman. But yeah, I don't know. It could be just a piece for the depth there throughout the regular season because you have a bunch of veteran players.
Yeah.
Which another key addition that I want to talk about, we've already hit on Andre Drummond. That's a huge piece. I don't think we need to go over that again.
Yeah.
But I do want to hit a little bit more on Reggie Jackson.
Okay.
Just because of his role on the Denver Nuggets and what he did for them 2 years ago. Obviously, he was on the he wasn't on the Phoenix Suns. He was on the Nuggets again last year. I think he was. Was he?
I know he was on the Nuggets. I also know he was with the Clippers. I don't know if that was before the Nuggets or after the Nuggets.
That was after. He was on the Clippers.
He was with Paul George.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, he was with the Clippers last year.
Okay. Dang, the Clippers were old, dude. Holy cow. Yeah, I forgot.
Well, they also have Kawhi Leonard who doesn't play any games. And they re-signed Kawhi, but they didn't re-sign Paul George.
Looking like a huge mistake.
Yeah, unless they know something we don't, because Steve Ballmer literally spent so much money on a new stadium. So why didn't he spend money on Paul George? I don't know, but if Paul George doesn't pan out, we know that Steve was ahead of the curve.
I guess. But even then, it's still, their team this year still does not seem promising. All the Clippers fans want is just to not end up in the lottery and give their pick to OKC.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so let's talk about Reggie Jackson a little bit. So I want
to Reginald.
I want to tell you his nicknames, okay? It's not Reginald.
His first name. I didn't see the nicknames.
Oh yeah, Reginald Sean Jackson.
I'm gonna call him Reginald now. That's fun.
His nicknames. You want a guy with the second nickname. You know he's a good player when you'll listen to his second nickname. Okay. His first nickname is Big Government. Obviously, I think Reginald plays into that.
Is that a compliment?
Well, I don't know, but the second nickname is a compliment. Okay.
Okay.
It's kind of along the lines for baseball of like, Red October, right?
Oh,
for him, it's Mr. June. Mr. June. You know why?
No way he's played that well.
Because he shows up. He shows up in the finals. He shows up when it matters.
I feel like there's other guys that are more deserving of the Mr. June title if we're giving it to one person. But okay, good for you, Reggie.
That's his nickname.
That's his
nickname. And so I'm gonna tell you his postseason stats. Okay, from the from the 2023 NBA season.
And like you were saying, that seems to be the theme here. This team is not a regular season team, it's a playoff team. They've been constructed for that. They've been built to play well in the playoffs, because in the regular season you're going to have Paul George is probably going to be hurt. Paul George and Joel Embiid are already both out for opening night. If that tells you anything about the Sixers season. Paul George is going to be hurt. Embiid is going to be resting. Like, they're not going to be at their full potential in the regular season. If they wanted to, they could probably, try to make a run at the 2 seed, but they're not going to. So we will see this team at full strength in the playoffs when they need it the most. And that kind of sucks for regular season viewership. But if they win a championship, then we won't care.
Okay. So just correction. He has been on Denver for the past 2 years.
It was Clippers then.
It was Clippers, then Denver.
Yeah.
Right. So here's his playoff production over the last 2 seasons. Obviously, Denver won the NBA championship in the 2022-2023 NBA season. So here's his just statistics. All right. Points per game in 2022-2023. He was at 0.5 points per game, but he only played 6 games, okay? So he's a minor contributor. But 2023-2024, he stepped it up a little bit. 3.5 points per game, 1 rebound per game, 1 assist per game.
There you go.
So you see, this isn't crazy, but it's so much better than what we've had in the past. Mm-hmm. We've got guys that are box plus minus of like -20 every time they step on the floor.
Uh-huh.
So to have someone who actually has a little bit of playoff experience, and when he's with the Clippers, he's also been a big-time playoff performer. He averaged in the 2020-2021 kind of COVID bubble when We didn't know what was going on.
Bit of an outlier for a lot of guys.
Bit of an outlier, but he averaged 17.8 points per game, right? His assists, he was at 3.4 per game, and then his total rebounds, 3.2 per game. And his field goal percentage was just under 60% throughout the postseason. And he played in 19 games, total games played. 17 games that postseason run.
That was 30-year-old Reggie Jackson versus 34-year-old now.
Yes.
Just to
keep
that
right. But
don't expect him to average 17 points per game.
Right.
But he's still solid.
Yeah, he's still just a solid player, and it's a great addition. So
yeah. I want to ask about Caleb Martin, last addition role player guy here. Probably will fit in as the power forward. I know that he has dominated the Celtics Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. Loved that. So we've got a Celtic killer. But overall, how does his play style fit into this starting lineup?
Well, I think he was a great addition because he's a guy where he can provide you a little bit of value on defense, but will be more best suited for offense. Okay. Kelly Oubre, I think he's a very good defensive presence. He's got very long arms, and so he's going to coexist with Kelly Oubre.
Okay.
They're going to be fighting for whoever is starting, not fighting in a sense of arguing with each other, but just it's going to depend on who plays better to see who gets that starting spot.
Okay.
Now, the thing with Caleb Martin that I really like about him is just his ability to shoot the ball. Okay. So I'm going to read you some statistics here from Caleb Martin. All right.
And we know the Heat love shooters. He was with the Heat, was great with them. Another guy, playoff experience, like I said, with the Celtics Eastern Conference Finals, but he was a key part of that whole Heat run to the finals. So another guy who he's not necessarily a shot creator on the level of some other guys, but that late in a playoff game, you can trust him with the ball if you absolutely need to.
Yeah, 2022, 2023, his 3-point percentage was 35.5%. All right, that's just solid. And then last year it was 35%. Okay. So, and the year before that it was 41%.
Would love that this year.
Yeah.
And you'd think,
well, 41's a little crazy. That's amazing. That's Steph Curry's at 40%. He shoots way more volume, but still,
Embiid was pushing 40%.
Well, Embiid barely shot though. Barely shot.
You would think with the volume, he should get more volume on a team with Joel Embiid, right?
Yeah, well, and the looks that he'll get are going to be different. Yeah. He's going to have a lot more open looks, whereas last year with Miami, he had to create a lot for himself. So a lot of those threes were heavily contested. 35% is just a really, really, that's above league average on NBA 3-point percentage. So just to have that into the lineup and the ability, they could run out a lineup theoretically. Yeah. Okay, theoretically, think about this lineup. Tyrese Maxey at the 1. Think about how good of a 3-point shooting team this could be theoretically.
Which is why it's such a good fit for Embiid.
Yeah. And this is why you need shooters around Embiid just because of the type of player he is, the gravity that he brings. You can't have people like Tobias Harris that clog up the entire lineup. Okay? But think about this lineup theoretically. Tyrese Maxey at the 1, Jared McCain at the 2, Paul George at the 3, Caleb Martin at the 4, and then Embiid at the 5. You can literally have 4 shooters surrounding Embiid in that lineup. If you want more defensive versatility, you bring in Andre Drummond when Embiid's out. You bring in Kelly Oubre. And then don't forget about Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon, right? Throw Eric Gordon
into the guards.
Yeah, into the 3-point shooting lineup. Eric Gordon could coexist around anybody. Throw him into the shooting guard spot if Jared McCain isn't playing well, right? So you have a ton of versatility there, and this is why the Sixers could go far. Because of the players that we named, there's so many potential contributors to this lineup. And it's honestly quite exciting. Yeah, it's It is really exciting.
I'm so excited. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but let's go max excitement. What is the ceiling for this Sixers team? Best case scenario.
Best case, so this all comes down to can they get over hump number 1, which you talked about earlier? Can they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals? I think the answer to that is a definite yes. If we're talking ceiling, they definitely can. With the way this roster is constructed, they can definitely make the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, I think we have to talk more in depth about hump number 2. Can they get past the Celtics? Right? Can they get past Jason Tatum?
It's a big hump.
Can they get past Jaylen Brown? Can they get past Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday? And that's the answer to that is unknown. And so if we're going ceiling,
yeah,
I'm not going to say no. Okay. It is a big hurdle. And do I think that they're going to do it? Probably not. But if we're going ceiling, they 100% can. And I think the ceiling for this team is the NBA championship. I'm just going to spell it there.
It's in the realm of possibilities.
It's in the realm of possibilities. Now, what needs to happen in order for them to get to an NBA championship?
A lot.
Tyrese Maxey has to take another leap. Embiid has to stay healthy throughout the postseason. Paul George has to stay healthy throughout the postseason. And then you have to have guys step up their game. You have to have Kelly Oubre locked down. Probably Kristaps Porzingis, because I don't think Embiid is going to be stretching all the way out to the 3-point line. I think they're going to want to keep Embiid. So you have to have Kelly Oubre on Kristaps, and he has to lock him down. So you have all these factors down the road that could come into play. You have to have Eric Gordon not get tired throughout the season. You have to have Jared McCain provide some form of value. Like, you got to have some guys step up, and then you need your superstars to be true superstars in order to compete with the top end talent of the Celtics. So can it happen? Yes. If you get through the Celtics, you can 100% win the championship at that point. So that's why I think their ceiling is definitely an NBA championship.
If you can beat the Celtics, you can beat anyone. I would say if hypothetical, we're talking ceiling, if you get to that Celtics series, I think that's the series where you need it to be Embiid taking over, at least in a couple of games, ideally 3+ games, to try to win 4 that you need. Because, yeah, the depth is awesome. It's going to be super helpful, but specifically against the Celtics, Embiid will have to dominate Kristaps and Al Horford, because the Celtics match up so well everywhere else, and center is the one place where you can be like, we have you guys beat for sure. And so you need to maximize that advantage, and Embiid's going to have a legacy series if they want to beat the Celtics. While you were talking about those additional guys, I realized I want to real quick go back to the new faces. A big new face that the Sixers added that's super intriguing and fun that I just want to make sure people know about so they can keep an eye on him is the Frenchman who dunked on LeBron James in the Olympics. I'm sure that's if you know who this is, that's the clip that you know him from. It was from the gold medal game. But yeah, how will he fit in on the bench?
Yeah, Guerschon Yabusele, he's a good depth piece.
Guerschon, I gotta remember that.
Guerschon Yabusele, he's a really good depth piece. I think he is pretty athletic. We'll see what he does throughout the season this year. I think injuries always happen, so I could see a realm where he's getting really important minutes.
He's very much a wild card.
He's very much a wild card. I don't know how good he's going to be on an NBA floor. I know that he can compete because we saw it in the Olympics. He was competing with the best players in the world from Team USA. And even throughout the whole Olympics, he was doing very well. He was one of France's best players. So I do know that he can compete. It's just a matter of, is Nick Nurse going to use him? Is he going to get on the floor? And I think the answer to that is yes, but I think it's in a reserve role.
Makes sense.
I think he seems to have the potential, though, to step up. He wasn't in the NBA last year, but that doesn't mean that he's had time in the G League. he was pro overseas as well. So I do think that he has the potential to step up into a starting role if needed, if injuries happen. But
It's not ideal, but
it's not ideal, but I think he could
can.
hold his own. Right.
Okay.
I think, especially if he's given minutes, I think he can compete.
So with that, we'll go to the floor. I would say if Gershon is a starter on this team at some point, we're getting close to the floor. That means things have gone wrong. Obviously, injuries are the biggest part of this. Injuries can absolutely wreck this team. So, yeah, all the things go wrong. Everybody's injured. What's the worst case?
Well, that's why a lot of times when you're thinking floor, you're not thinking like San Francisco 49ers level of injuries. Your whole team gets wrecked. But we have to be thinking that with this team because of the injury history. The only person that's safe, in my opinion, right now is Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain.
And Jared McCain got hurt in the preseason.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and he'll be fine. It wasn't like a long-term injury. It was just like getting the wind knocked out of him. But like those are the only guys in my head that like haven't had like a major knee injury and aren't like 35 years old. Like seriously.
Yeah.
So
Kelly Oubre got hit by a car.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Never mind.
Yeah, they have all gotten hurt.
Just crazy injury. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does very much concern me, and so we have to talk about the floor, thinking like injuries in mind, right? So if there's a lot of injuries that take place, Embiid isn't around for a majority of the season. Paul George, for whatever reason, can't play most of the season. And it's just Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain and Eric Gordon out there. It's going to be a struggle. Like the floor, if we're being honest, in that world, if Embiid and Paul George are out and it's just Tyrese Maxey doing his thing with Andre Drummond, the floor is missing the playoffs.
Really? Okay, that was going to be my question. Like, does it get that low where they don't make the play-in?
It can. Now, the percent chance of that happening is insanely low.
There's some bad teams in the East.
There's bad teams. Charlotte's the Raptors are in the East. They're going to be horrible this year. I think their over-under is like 29 games. So, yeah, like there's some bad teams in the East, but the Sixers are also would suck without Paul George and Embiid. So there is a world where that happens. Now, is it 0.01%?
Yeah.
Yes, it's super small. But the floor, if we're being honest, is very low because of injuries. It's also low in the postseason if Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, one of the three is hurt. It's also...
That's when you need them.
That's a first round exit if that happens. So the floor is very low. Yeah, disappointing for sure because it's so variable.
Yeah,
you have. I think they can win the championship, but I also think they can miss the playoffs. Like that is how much of a variability there could be,
which is so scary going into a season to have that wide of a range is. Yeah, terrifying, but exhilarating also. And that's the Sixers fan experience. So, like you said, the 0.001% chance that they miss the playoffs, the probably slim chance that they beat the Celtics. What, in your opinion, the Parker model, as we've famously touted before, is the most likely outcome for this team?
The most likely outcome, keep in mind, I love Nick Nurse as a coach. I think he's the best thing to happen to the Sixers since the process era.
Him and Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, Maxey. I love Maxey, obviously. But Maxey aside, it's Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is such a good coach, and he's perfect for this team. The ball movement is next level. And so just the ability, sorry, I'm mixing my words up here. The availability just to scheme up plays and off-ball movement for Embiid is huge. It's huge for this team. So the most likely outcome, I'm just going to keep it real here, most likely is getting to an Eastern Conference Finals, which would be an amazing result for the Sixers. They haven't done that in ages.
Over 20 years.
Yeah, since AI. But losing to the Boston Celtics. That's the most likely outcome. because the Celtics, they got their championship last year. Nothing has really changed for them. And so who's to say they're not going to repeat, right? The most likely outcome is an Eastern Conference Finals, which...
How would you feel about that? Losing to the Celtics, but you get over that first hump.
Yeah, I would hate losing to the Celtics. But I would be experiencing something that I haven't experienced before in my lifetime. So would I be disappointed? Yes, 100% I'd be disappointed. Would I be more disappointed than last year? No, I would not. Because they actually would have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Losing to the Celtics is horrible, but at least they made it there. Is like with the Sixers team, I was getting super high expectations last year throughout the season as they continued to win. And I need to temper them just because I've seen how good the Celtics are.
Yeah.
And so can an old Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin that is, a solid role player, but nothing crazy. And then with all the injury variables with the Sixers, can that team beat the Celtics? I think straight up on paper, probably not. Although this is the deepest the Sixers have always been. And this is make or break for Daryl Morey because he's been a GM for 20 years in the basketball world. He couldn't get over the hump with the Houston Rockets. Can he get over the hump with the Sixers? This is his best chance. On paper, this is our best chance. You just have right now a powerhouse, which is the Boston Celtics that you're competing against. So I think most likely outcome is that they lose to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals.
And that's just the East that you have the power. Like the Oklahoma City Thunder in the West are going to be ridiculously good this year.
And for years to come.
Yeah, they're scary. And if anybody else comes out of the West, they'll be crazy good too, because it'll mean they have beaten a couple other good teams and the Thunder likely. So,
and we haven't talked about the Knicks.
The league, the top end of the league is loaded, which is awesome for the league. But the Sixers are gonna have a bunch of tests if they're gonna make it that far.
Ideally, the Celtics Knicks play each other. Like that would be ideal. Obviously, you can't predict what will happen, but if the Sixers could just get to the Eastern Conference Finals. You never know what could happen with injuries as well. So I think the most likely outcome is they get there. And it's a great season because they haven't done it since Allen Iverson. So that's most likely. Now, my prediction, though, see, this is a little bit of bias.
Yeah, that was the Parker model.
That was the model. That was like, hey, this is most likely. But here's what's going to happen, okay? This is the just outlining of their season as a whole. They're going to start off a little bit slow, but they're going to pick it up right before the All-Star break, win a couple games. Okay? Just picture this. They come out of the All-Star break, they keep winning. They go like 9 for 10. And everybody's like, what's going on with the Sixers? They're the greatest and latest new team. Jared McCain, he's painting his nails pink at this point because they're on fire, right? He even has little flames. And that will happen. Paul George comes back from a short injury as they're wrapping up the regular season. Embiid sits out the last 5 to 10 games of the season because they don't care about their seed. They just want him to be healthy. He's resting a hamstring injury. Right?
What seed do they get?
They end up getting the 6th seed.
Okay.
The 6th seed, they win 43 games.
Barely over 500.
Yeah. They get the 6th seed. 43 games. And they have to play. Yeah, they have to play in one game for the play-in, but it doesn't really matter. They win that easily.
The 6th seed doesn't go to the play-in.
Oh, wait. 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Oh yeah, so they get the 6th seed. They don't have to play a playing game, and then they win the first series easily, very easily. They're on a roll.
Against the Bucks or Knicks?
No.
Cavs?
That one will be against the Cavs. They beat the Cavs easily. Cavs, Donovan Mitchell gets hurt in game 3. And the Cavs end up losing that series. Then they go against the Knicks, and this is in the not the Eastern Conference Finals yet, but they go against the Knicks, and the Knicks are the 3 seed. and they end up losing to the Knicks.
Well, the 3 seed would be the team that they just beat because they're the 6 seed.
Oh, okay. So then
But
it'd be the 2 seed. The Knicks are the 2 seed.
okay.
They lose to the Knicks, and my hopes and dreams are ruined again. That's kind of what I think is going to happen.
Oh.
So nothing too exciting.
I thought it was going to end up being better than the
No,
most likely.
no,
was worse.
I'm projecting it to be worse than most
Oh.
likely.
Losing to the Knicks back-to-back years would suck.
Yeah. And
After you lost to the Knicks and then the Phillies lost to the Mets, and then if you lose to the Knicks again, that'd be a rough stretch.
that would be really rough. And that's why I think it's going to happen. I don't think, so basically
Okay.
what I'm saying is like, I can't have faith in these Sixers until I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Once I see them win a game against the Celtics, I'm all in. If they get to the Eastern Conference Finals and they win game 1 or 2, I'm all in. I'm all in on them if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? So if they make it there, I think they can go all the way. They just have to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals healthy. If they make it there healthy, they're winning the championship. Okay? They're winning the championship. If they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals healthy, they're winning the chip. It's just if Embiid is getting a little hurt and there's a lot of unknowns, it's not going to happen. A lot of chips have to fall in the right direction in order for them to do it. But I think they can do it. I really do. I'm just not going to say that on camera because I need to see it first.
Yeah, so no one clip this out of context to make it seem like he did. Because in context, he said they can. He doesn't think that they will. But yeah, we really got to work on our tempering expectations because we said it last year and then we let our hopes get up.
Yeah.
Same thing happens with the Eagles. Same thing happens with the Phillies. We need to be locked in this year on keeping low expectations. So help us with that in any way you guys can. We need you to keep us accountable when we start getting too excited.
Yes, because I've gotten too excited every single year for every single Philly sports team. The only year I wasn't excited was when the Eagles won the Super Bowl because I thought, man, Carson Wentz just went down. This sucks. This is over.
Maybe that's the key.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I want to keep my prediction to losing to the Knicks again because that's like the worst outcome possible. And so if I think that, it can only go up from here.
I like that. Predict the worst outcome possible. That's smart. Yeah, I feel better about that prediction now that we've explained that. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting season because like we were saying, the regular season, we're recording this Tuesday night. I'm going to try to get it out Tuesday night. Anyway, whenever you're watching this, Sixers season is about to start or has just started. It's going to be a weird regular season to consume because it doesn't feel like we're going to see the full potential of this team until late in the season or literally not throughout the regular season. And we're going to see it in the playoffs, which I don't love for the like chemistry, the whole like NFL preseason debate of like, how much do you ramp up to prepare yourself for the real games? So yeah, it's going to be an interesting regular season to consume because I think in the games where we see all of the guys playing, we'll see glimpses of like, ooh, there's potential there, but we won't see it consistently at all. So that could help us. That could help us keep our expectations low because we're not probably going to have an amazing regular season that gets us all fired up. So that could be good for Sixers fans' mental health. But yeah, this was the Sixers season preview. We kept it under an hour. Great job. That was the goal, and we barely did it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Comment your predictions for the Sixers season, and hopefully you guys will be along for the ride throughout the season with us. We'll be talking about them all the time because it's fun to have a good team. And so we are going to try to enjoy that at least. And hopefully this is the team that can finally get it done.
The deepest Sixers team in the Joel Embiid era, this is their opportunity. Can they capture the moment or will they let it slip?
We're ready to get hurt again.